So I love bears. Why? Maybe I can't resist those cute faces with the ability to soften life's blows, or it could be because I was born in Berlin. The bear became the symbol for Berlin in 1280. I came along sometime after that. I was born to military parents stationed there around the time the Berlin Wall went up. Most people know the story of teddy bears in America. In November 1902, President Theodore Roosevelt was hunting in Missouri, and after 3 days had found no bears. His host decided to track a bear and tie it to a tree for Mr. Roosevelt to shoot. Seeing that the bear was old and injured and tied up, he didn't think it was too sporting to shoot it. Morris Mitchum saw an editorial cartoon recounting the episode in the Washington Post and created the first Teddy's bear. He sent one to the president and asked for permission to use the name, which was granted. As a side note, this year marks the 100th anniversary of Roosevelt's death. A couple of other quick notes. A series of poems called the Roosevelt Bears was published in 1905, and the instrumental song, The Teddy Bears Picnic, came along in 1907. Mr. Mitchum went on to found the Ideal Toy Company. So early teddies were made to look lifelike. Later in the century, and as more manufacturers began making bears, their features changed to accentuate the cuteness by using different colors and fabrics, and now there are teddy bears everywhere. This bear belonged to my grandmother, who was born in 1906. I believe it is one of the very earliest quote-unquote teddy's bear made in the US. It's about 8 inches tall, and as you can see, was well loved. Back to Germany. You've probably heard of the Steiff Company. Margareta Steiff founded the company in 1880. Hers is quite an interesting story, but that's for another time. In 1902, one of her nephews created a stuffed bear using sketches he made during a visit to the zoo. A few years later, he presented his bears at a regional toy fair where they caught the eye of a buyer from America who ordered 3,000. So in 1906, Steiff bears began their transatlantic trek. What about the little girl? Well, she grew up and was given bears as gifts and has bought quite a few herself over the years. She loves miniatures and has a dollhouse she built with her mother. Flash forward to 1997, bored with winter and looking to do something creative, she read a book on how to make miniature animals. Of course, there was a bear. So one snowy weekend, I opened that book and followed the directions. This is where patience comes in. These little creatures take about 10 to 12 hours to sew by hand. That equals about 1,500 stitches before assembly and details. So, a quick tour through the process. I start by cutting out all of the pieces and then sew each part and turn them inside out to hide the raggedy edges. Then comes stuffing with fiberfill and sewing up the gaps. Once all of the parts are finished, I attach the legs and arms so they move, and the head is the last piece. I add ears, nose, and beads for eyes. Then the head is closed and attached so it will swivel. Once complete, I add a bow or other embellishments. Each one has its own look and personality. The silver disc that you see is a nickel. Panda-style bears are fun because they use different colors and you actually can make 2 bears at a time. Smaller bears, an inch or less or more, are put together the same way. So I found my niche with 3-inch tall bears, fully jointed, which means that the arms, legs, and head are all movable. I mostly make what we think of as teddy bears, but have crafted the roly-poly versions that you've already seen that have head and arms that move with a pumpkin-like body, as well as bears like these that are meant to stand on all fours. The pieces are similar but assembled a little differently. This is the smallest bear I've ever made. It's about 1 inch tall. He's fully jointed, and my eyes haven't been normal since. To quote the Raven, nevermore. So what started as a fun thing to do has become almost an obsession, and I began to make bears for family and friends. Soon I received a request to create bears for a friend's family using their college colors, along with a bear holding a salmon in its mouth. This is where persistence won the day. I improvised and improved until finally happy with the result. To this day, the recipient still mentions it to her sister with fond memories of a trip they took together. Then my mother asked for a bear for her friend in New Zealand, seated at a piano, which my mother decorated with thistles on the sheet music and the rug underneath. After that, I sent one to Scotland, with a kilt, of course. And so what started in a living room in Unity is now a worldwide sensation. After the kilted bear turned out well, I started adorning my bears with other things, such as a wedding dress and proper tie, a straw hat for a day at the beach, and a vest to keep out the chill. As you can see, I also enjoy taking photos of my creations in different settings. Because of their size, the bears pair well with miniature furniture. And I try to take photos of the finished bears with something to show scale, like a coin or a paperclip. Many miniaturists do this as well. A tiny loaf of bread is no big deal in a photo, but put it next to a quarter and it really has impact. Other bear artists use mohair, plush, and specialty fabrics, but I like to work with felt. It's inexpensive. I don't feel bad if I have to recut a part, and it comes in so many wonderful colors and patterns. I use cross-stitch floss to sew with because I like the silkiness and the colors match beautifully. There really aren't a lot of specialty tools, regular needles, a beading needle, and a really good pair of tweezers to help with turning the pieces. So there are thousands of people in the world who make miniature bears and dress them in everything from wizard robes to baseball uniforms. Bear artists sell their creations for hundreds and even thousands of dollars. There are websites, clubs, and miniature shows that showcase the variety of bears. Oh, the furry things? Here's the first creature from those days many years ago. Did I mention that I followed the directions to a T? Well, the book said to use fake fur, so I did. He's certainly furry, but awfully cute. And that's why I love bears. Thank you.